Good morning. My chapel pewmate, Mr. Simboli, mentioned the other day that for him, the hanging of the greens has come to symbolize the real beginning of the Christmas season. And I totally agree. However, for the first year, he was unable to participate, as he was one of the many parents who was getting his angel dressed and fed. I, on the other hand, have only recently been able to join in the service, as my shepherds have outgrown their robes. It is a magical time of year. When I come into the chapel this time of year, I do feel the Advent. I feel it at home, in my children's excitement for the season, and I feel it in you students in class as you get ready for your long break. We all feel it. I wanted to start this morning by sharing a very simple tradition that's in my family. It's going to seem very unrelated to what Nick just shared, but I'm going to try my best to bring them all together. Every Friday before chapel, I drive my boys to school, and we stop for muffins at a little cafe called On the Run. Their order is precisely the same every single week. The chocolate chip muffin, drizzled with butter, warmed in the microwave. One of the ladies brings them over to our table, being watched by the boys' hungry eyes. And I was watching their eyes last week, a couple weeks ago. And as soon as these muffins arrived on the table, they took their eyes off their own muffin to check out their brother's muffin. Only after they knew that their muffin would stand up to comparison to their brother's muffin were they willing to dig in. And they're not alone in this. Anytime I go out for dinner, I naturally compare my choice of entree to that of the woman sitting next to me. And I notice that she often does the same. The point of this culinary story, and that of my entire talk this morning, is the natural need for models in our lives. My observation is that we don't know how to recognize goodness in the absolute sense, but only in the relative sense. My muffin may be delicious, but his is bigger or has more chips. Or my muffin may be crumbly and dry, but that's okay because his just fell on the floor. Nick's reading from Peter sets forth one absolute set of standards for the way we could live our lives under the model of Jesus Christ, with morality, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, and love. These were set forth in the 1st century AD, and this list is undeniably consistent with what we espouse in our society today. And indeed, right here on the hilltop, we could have easily quoted from Mr. Chandler's door. And yet, as timeless are those values from 2,000 years ago, some of them can feel very obsolete in their application looking through your eyes. When Jesus embodied morality, perseverance, self-control, was he subject to the 24/7 bombardment from the online world? From League of Legends, from the lures of cutting and pasting? How did he accumulate his knowledge? There are many points of view on this, but what we know for sure is that it was not through a curriculum of chemistry and trigonometry and Chaucer and Chinese. It isn't that he lived in any less challenging time, quite the opposite. But the model he set and prescribed by his apostles is certainly open for modern translation. You want it to play, as in a job, profession, a lifestyle that you aspire to. But it seems like the concept is adopted a little bit to include a broader meaning, to include a person who exhibits qualities and traits that we deem desirable. So one way to understand someone is to understand the role models in their lives, which is probably why colleges want to ask you this question. So I quickly, of course, surveyed the landscape of the most popular role models. Where did I look? Well, the internet. There's a crowdsourced ranking on the internet that offers an interesting, if statistically invalid, perspective Jesus continues to rank number one, with an enormous lead over Albert Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci. A long string of past presidents and international leaders, including Nelson Mandela, follows, with the occasional celebrity artist thrown in: Bob Marley, John Lennon, William Shakespeare, and of course Elvis. But I noticed that almost everyone is dead. You don't really get to a contemporary until you hit the actress who played Hermione in Harry Potter, and she's down at number 32. So are these helpful as a modern guide? Well, they certainly don't offer me a concrete sort of day-to-day model that I would use as a reference point. Maybe during the quiet months of summer, I can reflect on where my life is and whether I'm following the teachings of Elvis. But I think our reality is that our lives are made up of split-second decisions. A study showed that a typical person makes 35,000 decisions a day. That amounts to about a billion in your lifetime. Most are very automatic. Very little reflection. In most cases, I find it highly probable that any of us, during these decisions, are referring to the teachings of the apostles, the wisdom and selflessness of Nelson Mandela, the flash of Justin Bieber, or the intelligence of Hermione Granger. I think it's far more likely that you're picking up on the cues of those immediately to your right and to your left. So back to my Friday morning muffins. The decision. How do I feel about my chocolate muffin? Apparently a 14-year-old does not have a divine image of the perfect muffin yet. So he turns to the best available option, that of his brother. Let's bring this to the hilltop. Our institution, the last 100 or so years, has developed a lot of absolute standards that we hope guide you through your time and your thousands of decisions. In the same way that biblical scripture serves to guide the lives of pious Christians. The school mission, the Sarum hymn, our motto, Esse quam videre, our honor code, the senior word, the culture of respect, our traditions, our rules, our academic standards, and a faculty body that's charged with representing, communicating, and in some cases adopting these standards. And yet, just like the apostles may fail to guide us, we don't pretend for a minute that we have a rule or a standard or even a guideline for every situation. In these cases, just like the evaluation of my son's muffin, we recognize that you look to the boy to your right and the boy to your left to help make your decision. That phenomenon, you can examine it through the language of flock behavior or rationalization or crowd mentality or even a mild form of peer pressure. It's pervasive here. It's everywhere. In the classroom, on the playing fields, in the dorms, and even here in chapel. We've seen it push some boys to become so much more than they ever thought possible. We've also seen it cause boys to fall significantly short of their potential. Your immediate reaction is what? Probably to grab some trash yourself. But inversely, when you see that boy next to you leaving a napkin behind, your natural reaction, and it is natural, is to be less meticulous with your own. The same holds for dormitory hallways, locker rooms, and every other common resource here on campus. On the squash court, when you see your teammate pushing himself to exhaustion during every drill and doing so with earnest enthusiasm, you know you find yourself doing the same, and you rapidly improve. On the other hand, if you notice that the guy next to you is only doing 17 of the 20 burpees that he's supposed to be doing, you find it so much easier to cut the corner yourself. When you get back a quiz for which you may have been ill-prepared, one immediate reaction is to check out the score of the guy next to you. If he and others performed well, you know this. You're likely to look inward and say, boy, I probably didn't prepare too well for that. I should have done better. If he doesn't do well, you are very likely to look outward. Either it's okay, because everybody else failed, or hey, it's the teacher's fault. This course is too hard. And in chapel, when Mr. Brown, Reverend Hall, asks you to participate in the chapel experience through psalm or hymn, your first instinct is to do exactly what the guy next to you is doing. If he reads, you'll read. If he sings, you'll sing. And if not, well, you get the picture. So I think this is a phenomenon that's very powerful. And one reason is that it tends to reinforce itself. Because when you model and you measure yourself on the yardstick of the guy next to you, it validates him. It validates his actions and his behavior and his attitudes. If you cut a corner in your life and others follow your lead, it unfortunately validates your decision to do that. On the other hand, if you decide to do something really difficult and good, often sticking your neck out as an individual, and the guy next to you supports you through imitation, he has affirmed and deepened your conviction. For those here last year, I would share the image of the wild hillside dancer and the first follower that Mr. Kulum sent around and held out as a standard for leadership. So I accept that my children, they're always going to compare their muffins, and I accept the same will always be true among all of us, adults and students alike. So what do we do? I think the first is to acknowledge it. Acknowledge that our actions and attitudes are driven largely by the company that we keep. And in turn, acknowledge that our actions bear great responsibility for those immediately around us. And acknowledge that this can spiral up and it can spiral down. And the second is to recognize that the world off the hilltop, this is the world we're preparing you for, they're going to measure you against models that have nothing to do with your roommate, nothing to do with your soccer buddy, nothing to do with the guy sitting next to you in class. It is so obvious when we have visitors here on campus that this is true. Mr. Gilbert will tell you about the stories of prospective families whose decision to send their boys to Salisbury was guided by an observation that we hold doors open. This is a classic case. When someone holds a door open for you, your natural instinct is to model that behavior. And before you know it, we have a culture where we hold doors open. Okay? People from off the campus, they recognize that immediately. There was a leader in our local community who visited a class last year. He interacted for an hour or so with the students, and then he left, and he sent me an email that afternoon that said, and I quote, "Tote, I enjoyed speaking with your class. More than anything, I was impressed by their firm handshakes. Do you guys teach that?" Well, we don't really teach that. It's another classic case. If every day you're receiving a firm handshake, you're going to start to do the same thing. By this time of year, even the 100 new boys have firmed up. We don't teach it. We don't even think about it. We just do it. So what if we took the same attitude to get better in every venue? Take seriously the responsibility that comes with being a serum. I'd love to start in chapel. When your brother is reading a psalm up here, when he's standing here and he's reading a psalm and asks for your help, you need to give it to him. And we need to sing. We need to do it at this time of year more than any other. We know this music. We even know some of the words. Truth be told, I really can't carry a tune. But if the guy next to me is singing loudly, I'll go ahead and lift up my voice and blend it in with everybody else. I feel just great about my singing. And that feeling carries with me for the rest of the day. And if it carries with me, I'm so much less likely to give a pop quiz during class. So this morning, let's embrace the chocolate muffin. Let's embrace this new twist on what it means to be a Serum brother and its power to shape our lives. Let's lift up our voices so the guy next to you can too. I asked Reverend Hall to give us a good one. He did. We'll be singing this one again a couple days before winter break. But let's lift off the roof both now and then. Please join in singing one of our favorite hymns, hymn number 83, O Come All Ye Faithful. Number 83 in your blue hymn book.